shotgun and chased him as he went to rearm himself.
He got the gun out of his car and started shooting at me. He did around 4 or 5 shots on me, and I able to duck myself between the cars and run.
Abdulaziz has been described as a hero after screaming at the gunman as he tried to lead him away from one of the mosques targeted in Christchurch. 49 people died in the atrocity. A 28-year-old Australian man has appeared in court charged with murder. The Democratic Unionists insist Brexit talks with the government are not focusing on extra money for Northern Ireland. They're in discussions about Theresa May's EU withdrawal deal. A man's been hurt after a large tree crashed through the roof of a house in West Sussex in strong winds. 2 properties had to be evacuated after it fell this morning in Bewbush near Crawley. Police are investigating the death of a Moroccan woman with links to former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi's Bunga Bunga parties. Amain Fadil died earlier this month in Milan. In sport, Wales have secured the Grand Slam in Rugby Union's Six Nations in some style. They thrashed last year's champions Ireland 25-7 in Cardiff to complete an unbeaten campaign. Hamish Stewart was watching the closing stages.
Right from the beginning, they showed an intensity in the rain that Ireland simply couldn't live with. It's a 3rd Grand Slam for coach Warren Gatland. He's the first coach to achieve 3 Grand Slams. It's the 12th Grand Slam in Wales rugby history, and it's their 4th in 14 years. This has been a tremendous performance by Wales.
England are just starting their final match with Scotland at Twickenham. Watford are the first team through to the semi-finals of this year's FA Cup. They beat Crystal Palace 2-1. Manchester City kick off at Swansea later this hour. Rangers came back from 1-0 down to draw 1-1 with Kilmarnock. That's the latest.
Welcome to LinkFM 96.7 FM. I'm your host, Mahroof Hussain, on Your Point of View, broadcasting across Sheffield, South Yorkshire, at Luton and Bedfordshire on Inspired FM, and Bradford District on Bradford Asian Radio. So we welcome everybody across the country, and we're also broadcasting live on Facebook on LinkFM 96.7 FM. You'll be able to see a full studio with me today. You've got quite a few guests with me. My usual political contributor, Councillor Shafat Mohammed, has decided to go on a vacation to York. I think I could have picked a better location, but anyway, York is better placed than anything. He's at the Lib Dem conference. I will have a little joke with him later on. How do you have 12 people have a conference? But apparently they can. But we'll keep that debate going when he calls in after 6. But in the studio with me today is the District Commander for Sheffield, Stuart Barton. Welcome, Stuart.
Thank you.
And one of our, I think he's a regular guest as well, Councillor Jim Stanky, Cabinet Member on Sheffield City Council. Also with me is the Civic Mayor of Doncaster, Councillor Majid Khan, and also our good friend, Councillor Michelle Cook. So welcome to all our guests in the studio. It's a bit dreary and raining outside, but we're very grateful for you for coming into the studio. We want people to get involved. Do give us a call, and if you are minded to do so after you hear some of the comments, or if there's something you want to talk about, because today we're really going to focus on what happened in New Zealand, and we will be talking a bit at the end of the show around a fostering program that's happening for Muslim children happening in Rotherham, which we thought was quite appropriate, and we want to give them a bit of airtime as well. As you know, in New Zealand there was a terrible tragedy, but if you want to phone in, the number's 0114 261 8181. You can WhatsApp us on 07939 84 9339, and we'll pick up those comments. But the debates about yourself, phone in, give us your opinion. There must be something that you want to get off your chest. I know we're not LBC in London, but hey, we're the best thing you can get across in the north of England. But coming to our guests first of all, and I think I've come to Stuart Barton, the District Commander of Sheffield first of all. Stuart, you witnessed what happened on Friday. I woke up to this because for some reason I couldn't sleep that night, and I picked up my phone and these messages started to come through, and those messages were really, there's been a mosque attack. Not quite sure how bad it was, but as the day went on, it found out that 49 people had been killed by a guy who was streaming online on social media what he was doing, and it was terrible scenes, and and what happened was unprecedented, I think, in relation to how the kind of carnage folded through. But Stuart, I mean, there's been a lot of issues around security and safety, and I think one thing we need to talk to you about really is what kind of message, first of all, from a security point of view, Stuart, do you want to give to the people that are listening out there?
Okay, firstly, thanks very much for the invite today. I mean, I was at the vigil last night with yourself in Sheffield, well attended. A lot of people coming over to me, shaking my hand, saying thank you for what you do. Thank you for trying to help us in your daily business, which was nice to see. And I think there is a real trust in Sheffield, in the police, of what we are trying to do. I work very closely with Jim. We were at the scrutiny meeting the other night around what we're trying to do for Sheffield, for the best of Sheffield. But in respect of what happened on Friday, appalling. It doesn't need me to be a police officer to say that. And it's really affected everybody, and obviously deeply affected Muslim communities across the world. So from that, we've had, well, like we always do in the police service, we try and grade things. We have gold meetings where we sat around the table, we discussed, and I think you've been part of some of these yourself in the past with Tim Forber. And our aim is over the next few days outside some of the mosques to visit, to say hello, to say we're here, any concerns, do what we can. We've done that over the last 24 hours. Again, I'll say thank you, because people have been coming out with food, welcoming us, say, you know, it's been a fantastic reception. But I can understand the nervousness, there's no doubt about it. There has been a massive investment in counter-terrorism or terrorism over the last few years within the police service. I've seen it grow beyond belief, and I think the results there are there to be seen. But I think Friday takes it to another scale. It was awful. It's something that we don't want on these shores for sure. And last year I was part of, or the year before in 2017, I was over in Manchester when the arena attack occurred, and those scenes will stick with me for many years to come.
Okay, so just from your experience then, Stuart, how do you think New Zealand police would have handled this? Because from the information that was coming through, and when there's a firearms offence going on, the police really have to wait for firearm police to turn up. But a 16-minute gap happened, and whatever happened from the New Zealand point of view, what would they have been doing? What would have been going through the command and control in New Zealand Police Force at the time about what's coming through and how they should handle this?
The truth is, you can plan as much as you want for these kind of events, and there's always in the back of your mind a template of what you want to do. But let's take Manchester for example. It happened, and then through that night, on occasions, it is chaotic. There is no doubt about it. You can't really plan for events like that. You can do your best. You try and go into overdrive. You've got officers wanting to get in there, you've got the fire service wanting to get in there as well, you've got to take caution, care. But what I will say is that I woke up on that morning in particular to about 5 o'clock in the morning to look at my phone, which had exploded with texts. Made my way into Manchester, and what I saw in the control room, I've never seen it before, army, others, people, it was packed. And I then greeted through the door every officer that had been to that scene during that night. And I've never really witnessed anything like it, because what they had to deal with that night was quite unbelievable, and putting them in the face of risk themselves. So yes, it's great to have a plan up your sleeve, but the truth is, when it does happen, and we do have a plan, there's a lot of chaos around it as well, because each incident is different.
And how do the communities react then? I mean, there's been a serious incident when the Manchester attack happened. Clearly we were all focused on what not only just dealing with the current situation like you would from a command officer, but from a community point of view, it's about, okay, there's going to be a fallout here. How do we deal with these issues? How do we manage this? I mean, are we managing the news, or are we actually managing what the potential fallout might be? Does that come into the police's mind at any stage?
Oh, of course it does. I mean, at the end of the day, we set up cells around community engagement. What are we doing? Trying to reassure people. Unfortunately, we have some fools out there who decide to take it upon themselves to, come out with racial slurs, text messages, hate crimes, etc. That's a case of managing that as well. And I think even we've seen this week some of the abhorrent comments from people that are in support of what this gentleman did in New Zealand, and we're aware of that even locally. So, yeah, absolutely, that's the forefront. We've got to get some calm. We've got to show people what we're doing. We've tried to do that on the last 24 hours. I'm here tonight to do exactly that. I'm going to be hopefully with Jim tomorrow night doing exactly the same. And we'll continue to do it over the next few days.
Excellent. Jim, so, just coming back to yourself as an elected councillor, Stuart's talked a bit about the kind of policing side of it and how they deal with those issues, and he's an individual who was involved in Manchester when, I think you were at Moss side, is that right?
I was at Salford.
Salford.
Yeah.
So dealing with those issues. But Jim, terrible tragedy, 49 people lost their lives. For a Muslim, Friday's a holy day, just like it would be for a Sunday for a Christian, or Saturday for a Jewish person. They're in a mosque, they're in a state of cleanliness, so they've cleaned themselves, the wudu as it is. They went in there with their families to pray, and they never left. And this individual went in, by all intents, he was cool, he was calm, he was calculated, he knew what he was doing, you know, he planned it, and what he did. What was your first initial thoughts when you heard what went on, or either what you heard or when you actually understood the ramifications of the actual numbers of people that are potentially being killed?
I kind of learnt, they got off a tram in the morning at Crystal Peaks, and someone was greeting me and told me that, and I hadn't picked it up to that point. And you just kind of feel immediate, kind of, I suppose, nausea, really. You're just really quite sick, because in a way, it doesn't register in terms of actually almost like what's happened, whether it's a mosque or in terms of kind of Muslims being killed, but it's just that sheer loss of life. I think it was then during the course of the day, realising how well planned it had been, and the whole issue about it being live streamed and the preparation for it made it even more sickening. And then I suppose it was kind of by the time of the evening that talking with someone who is a refugee themselves kind of reminded me that, you know, that actually a lot of the people who would have been killed in that attack would have been actually refugees to New Zealand. And you have a country that has been really quite welcoming. New Zealand has been very exemplary in terms of the people who it's taken on board. So you welcome kind of people to a country from, you know, very dangerous circumstances, and they end up kind of getting killed by an act of terrorism in that country. And that, I find, is one of the kind of most upsetting things about it.
Majid, coming to yourself, I mean, this individual spoused a lot of things in a manifesto well in advance of going in there. He was all anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim. He kind of, should I say, paraphrase or quote Donald Trump. He looked up to Donald Trump. And the rhetoric from some of these politicians, and we'll come to that part after 5:30 about the politics of all of this and what does it actually mean and how are those messages coming across. I mean, what is your initial thoughts about, you know, when you heard what's gone on? I mean, we're always turning on the news and hearing about some kind of attack. This one also terrible, just like the other ones that took place, like we talked about in Manchester. What was your first initial thoughts?
I was woken up about 5:30. I had a conversation with our chief executive who got on the phone to me, and I was absolutely shocked. And we were watching the news roll in, the numbers and the casualties going up and up, and someone sent me a link to the footage, which I clicked on by mistake and didn't realise what it was. It looks like a computer game, and it was just mind-boggling that early in the morning to come across those kind of images. And it's people who, like you said, they were ready for Jummah Salah, they were in the mosque. I myself would go through those motions myself, as clockwork, and it was just mind-boggling. I couldn't comprehend what was going on. First initial reactions from me is the community that I serve and the people in Doncaster, and is there going to be any backlash or copycat crimes? Because often we see it when something like this does happen, other people are emboldened to go ahead and do the same. And the response that we had from South Yorkshire Police and our other partners was exemplary, and we put the reassuring message out there, and we managed the situation the best we can. But I was in absolute shock, and it's still not quite fully sunk in. It's 49 people, 20 are critically ill. It's just mind-blowing what's happened.
Michelle, similar to yourself, I mean, when you've heard the news, what went through your mind? What were you thinking?
Well, as now I'm just shocked and appalled. I just saw it, and like Majid, I clicked on the footage, by mistake, and I've never seen anything like it. It's just awful, isn't it? It's my first reaction is to send my condolences to all those who have lost friends and family over in New Zealand, and hope that that everything is being done to try and support those people. And I know that the authorities and the police and everything over there will be doing all that they can. And the ramifications are worldwide. If it can happen over in New Zealand, which is a welcoming place for refugees, which is a peaceful place, then it can happen anywhere. So we're all on alert all the time. In terms of what's happened in Sheffield, it's straight away a vigil was called. I mean, I'm sorry to say that it's becoming all too regular to be called to a vigil in the Peace Gardens. I mean, people do need to come together, but it is very, very sad sad event when this happens. I know that various people have been out to visit, people who don't usually visit the local mosques. I've been to visit the local mosque to offer support there, and tomorrow I'll be going to St Mark's Church in Broomhill, where they'll be doing a special service to support people.
Stuart, just coming to yourself in relation to security, and we mentioned investment in counter-terrorism police. One of the arguments from, should I say, one side of the communities, which is the Muslim communities, in the counter-terrorism resource is predominantly aimed at, religious extremism, as opposed to treating far-right extremism seriously. And I think the game has changed here. I think the goalposts have moved quite significantly. Quite a few organisations have been telling the government that, they need to pay more attention to these resources. Do you think, as a senior police officer then in South Yorkshire, those resources are now being targeted in the right place, or do they need to actually refocus, reevaluate and relook at where that money needs to go? And have the police services got the intelligence and the know-how out there about what's going on?
Okay, well, I think, I know Jim knows that I like my stats, but I'll throw a few in here because 2017 to 18, I think there were just over 385 up to 400 people arrested for terrorism offences. Last year, that was on the back of the Manchester attack and London attacks. Last year a drop, but what we did see last year more than anything else is a significant increase of numbers of people arrested from far-right extremism organisations, and that at the moment is where we are feeling the picture and the change. So I think we are recognising that. I think there is a plan around identifying those people, the sophisticated individuals, as we've seen, using the internet and other means to plan, to recce these types of incidents. These are proper operations that some of them organise, or this man has organised for weeks in advance. So to answer your question, yes, I do. I think we recognise it. We recognise there's an increase in it, and I think our statistics around what we're trying to do with it reflect that.
And so, I mean, that's from a police point of view, but what about from the kind of government point of view? Is that what they're pushing you to do? Is this something that the police are thinking this is where we need to direct the resources? I think it's let's be honest, we've seen incidents now, we see things on the news around far-right extremism. I don't think it's the government saying, police, you must do this. It's us recognising we need to do it, and I think we're set up in a way now where there has started to be a rise in this, and we are definitely looking at and targeting the right people. I'm not sure the background of the New Zealand incident. I don't know where this young man came from, and there will be questions asked like there was within the Manchester about what did you do, what did you know, and that'll all come out in due course. The truth is, a lot of our operations, successful one, run from people seeing things and going, that doesn't seem quite right, that. I need to tell somebody about it, within families, friends, etc., etc. And it's sometimes quite hard within families when you know maybe that somebody's going on a path, is to say, this man needs some help, or this lady needs some help. So my ask is to continue to say to Sheffield is, if you think that people are engaged in it, tell us, let us know. Because if you don't, sometimes the ramifications can be quite large and extreme. Jim, you're a cabinet member, your portfolio covers communities, neighbourhoods as well. Do you feel that local authorities are engaging with local communities enough, or is it every time there's an issue, you go out, you turn up, you have a few words, then you move away again, you forget about them? Then there's another tragedy, like Michelle said, we have another vigil, then we turn up and do a bit of patrolling. Actually, have we lost that kind of link, that neighbourhood link? I mean, I know neighbourhood policing was a big thing. Your local bobby knew the local community. When the local bobby moves on, you've got a gap. Just like the GP, you had your local GP, the GPs go away, you're now talking massive practices and you can't even get an appointment. So from a council point of view, you're having cutbacks at the same time. Yet with Brexit coming up, you're going to have more issues, let's face it. Do you think local authorities are geared to deal with the new challenges that are going to be coming up in the next few years?
I think we're starting to get geared up for it, and I think we've still got a lot more to do. I mean, in terms of the original question about kind of losing touch with neighbourhoods and communities, I think that's been a real problem and that predates austerity. I think it's actually about kind of local authorities reinventing themselves to be both responsive and reflective of communities, but also to show some leadership in terms of, very, very rapidly changing times. And I think that's what I'd like to think we were doing in Sheffield and other local authorities nearby. In terms of the kind of neighbourhood approach, I think, as you said, there was the move by the police away from neighbourhood policing. I think that's been reversed and coming back, although albeit with vastly reduced resources. I think we can already see the benefits of that. What I think is important from a local authority perspective is that we do kind of move to a more neighbourhood-based profile, and that's what I'm kind of being charged with to do. But we need to do that in cooperation with other agencies as well, particularly health services and particularly the police as well. And I've got to say, I feel we're starting to make some real progress.
Let me ask you something then, Jim. I mean, when you sit there in your cabinet meetings, you're all senior individuals, senior politicians. You'll sit there with the MPs for Sheffield. Sometimes I equate that to like my insurance company. If you've been in an accident, they do a desktop exercise. They actually don't even leave their office. They sit there with a couple of reports, make a few phone calls, and they come up with a plan. And when you ask them, actually, how did you come up to this conclusion? They admit it was a desktop thing. We just sat there and did it between ourselves. Yeah. Are you getting out there talking to people and asking them? I mean, if I was to go out and ask the mosques and the communities, what do you think they would tell me?
What would they tell you? I think they would tell you that the town hall is fairly remote. That certain kind of services are nearer to the ground than others, that it's very difficult often to get responses, and some of that is just about pure communication. I think that in terms of the mosques, that there would be a feel that that P's believe they turn up when there's a crisis or when there's an election. We need to reverse all that, and I think that there is kind of progress. I mean, certainly I try and get out as much as I can.
No, you do. You come in. I mean, fair credit to you, Jim and Michelle. There's a few of you that do turn up whenever we ask you.
And I think that's not because I can't stand being in the town hall. It's just because I just like being out and about. And I think that the thing I love most about my job is actually being out and about. And I think that, but we still need to do more. We need to kind of get the structure of the local authority right to be responsive, and not just kind of individual cabinet members or elected members.
Majid, coming to you, you're a I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you're a Muslim politician. You're your first one in Doncaster elected. You were the first Muslim mayor. I don't like this title first. As far as I see, you're a citizen of the UK, and whatever you achieve through your abilities. You do a good job, people will bring you back. You don't do a good job, people won't want you back. But one of the things this individual posted, he attacked people like Sadiq Khan, who was the mayor of London. He's saying these people, we've had politicians, Muslim politicians in America. As soon as they get into high office, they say, you should engage. You should get engaged, you should get involved, and that's when you become part of society. But when you become part of society, you then become a target. Who would want to do your job? Because you're going to get abused.
It's a very good question. I think you're right in what you're saying, Mahroof, in that there's almost a push on integration and be a part of society and get more involved. But as soon as you take that step and you start doing that kind of work, you start to feel the backlash from people who, I don't know, we're here to take over, or we're infiltrating, or we've got a Muslim mayor and everything in Doncaster is now going to be halal, or God knows what else. And some of the nonsense that I have to go through on Facebook and our local publication, the Doncaster Free Press, are very good in the way they moderate comments now, especially against me. But it's the double-edged sword, isn't it? Do we integrate, or when we integrate to the level where other people can't achieve, then it's almost jealousy or a backlash against that. So it's a tough one.
Let me come to Michelle before we go to the break. Michelle, I mean, similar scenario. You're a councillor. I always say, Michelle, for as councillors are concerned, you are representing the people in the town hall. Right. You're not representing the town hall in the community. There's a big difference in that.
It's that way around.
Because is that what we're trying to do? Because when we're talking about New Zealand, we're talking about how do we deal with the immediate fallout, but actually I want to talk about how do we build those bridges so that the next time, and like Stuart said, we have a resilient community which identifies criminals, identifies perpetrators, and listen, I don't care if you're my relative, I don't care if you're my friend, what you're doing is going to destroy these communities.
That's exactly right. And the role that I do at the council, a major role at the moment, is the chair of the Central Local Area Partnership. So, part of my remit is to be liaising with all the different partnerships in the community, be them VCF, be them the police, be them just individuals and community groups, and try and bring those together. It's sometimes easier said than done, but that is what I'm charged to do, and in my case in the central area, which covers all the city centre and beyond. So it's something, and I know that Jamie is working on different ideas as we go forward to try and improve this and make it even better, because there is room to improvement, we have to admit. I mean, in terms of being an elected representative, then we do feel the pressure as a female councillor, also a black female councillor. I feel the pressure. We know the abuse that such as Diane Abbott had. We know the sad loss of our lovely colleague Jo Cox at the hands of such an extremist of this. So
we're going to talk about newspaper headlines after the break as well. Just on that, and
it's always on our minds. Always.
We're going to come to a break very shortly, so we want people to get involved in the debate. What we want to be talking about today is analyse what happened, not repeat what happened. We've seen the TV stations. We've listened to the radio, we know what happened. What I want to talk about is analyse why it happened and what we should do to solve these issues. We're glad that Stuart's with us today, because there's a level of reassurance that communities need. They need to make sure that the people out there, the people in power, are looking after us. Now, that reassurance, Stuart, you would have given to any community who would have been in trouble. But we're going to go to a break now, so we'll have a chat about afterwards on that. And reassurance is extremely important, security is extremely important, but actually we don't want to be living in a country where security and reassurance is the key message. The key message should be around communities getting on. We don't want to bring it into faith when there's an issue, but we want to make that an ongoing thing. So stay tuned. We're going to go into a break and join us after 5:30.
Sheffield's very own community radio station, LinkFM.
बेटा चलो अब घर चलते हैं, मुझे तो बहुत भूख लगी है।
अम्मी घर जाने की क्या जरूरत है, रैपचिक चलते हैं।
रैपचिक और यहाँ?
जी अम्मी, रैपचिक अब शेफील्ड सिटी सेंटर में भी है।
Yes, that's right. Rapchick is now open on Devonshire Street in Sheffield City Centre. Come and try our delicious halal food. Fusion of Indian and Mexican halal food. We pride ourselves in a no-fry policy. Rapchick, 106 Devonshire Street, S3 7SF. Rapchick. Taste the revolution.
Through Minhaj Welfare Foundation, your giving saves lives. Your support has provided more than 3 million people with access to clean and safe water, emergency relief in natural disaster and crisis-affected areas around the world, supported orphans and needy children with a better future. This year, your help can do more. Donate your zakat, sadaqah and charitable donations to any of your chosen projects. Call now on 0300 30 30 777 or visit us at minhajwelfare.org.
The only wedding venue in Sheffield that offers you an all-in-one package, Maya Suite by Chandani. Here at Maya, we offer an impeccable 5-star service. Our brand new venue has a vibrant, contemporary environment filled with stylish spaces. We have our own private car park and garden. Minutes away from Meadowhall Shopping Centre, we at Maya guarantee to provide the best service for your occasion. To make a booking, contact our business manager on 07 960 960 840 07 960 960 840.
अकबर ट्रैवल एंड टूर्स पेश करते हैं रमजान स्पेशल उम्रा पैकेज सिर्फ 1395 पाउंड, जिसमें वीजा, फ्लाइट्स, 4-स्टार होटल में क़याम, मुकम्मल ट्रांसपोर्ट और शेफील्ड से पिक एंड ड्रॉप शामिल है। रवानगी 20 मई और वापसी 6 जून। इसके अलावा आज़मीन हज के लिए खुसूसी पैकेज सिर्फ 5795 पाउंड, जिसमें 5-स्टार होटल, फ्लाइट्स, कुर्बानी, ट्रांसपोर्ट, मिना और अराफात में एयर कंडीशन टेंट शामिल हैं। फौरी राब्ता कीजिए अकबर ट्रैवल एंड टूर्स, 18 ओलल एंड शेफील्ड, 01142 444343।
Maria Daily Fresh Food and Milad Catering, Rotherham में फ्रेश खानों का मरकज। जी हाँ, फ्रेश खानों का मरकज। मारिया फूड आए, अपनी पसंद का खाना उसी वक्त बनवाएं और मजे से खाएं। हमारे यहाँ ग्रिल फिश, सीख कबाब, बर्गर्स और हर किस्म की करी तैयार की जाती है। We also have a large selection of ice cream and we also cater for large events. Maria Daily Fresh Food and Milad Catering, 177 Wellgate, Rotherham. Telephone 01709 207 312.
रोते हुए आते हैं सब, हंसता हुआ जो जाएगा।
आज आप हंस रहे हो, क्या बात है?
तू ते हर खबर रखनी है। मिस्टर कॉम्पनसेटर ना नाते सुनिए उसे।
जी हाँ, वो टैक्सी एक्सीडेंट क्लेम वाले। अब समझी, बड़े बड़े रेफरल और नई नई गाड़ी।
टैक्सी चाहिए? मिस्टर कॉम्पनसेटर के पास चले जाओ 0114-386-3386 और विजिट द गोल्ड टैक्सी ऑन एबिडेल रोड, शेफील्ड।
दुनिया के बड़े ऐवानों में होता है क्या? बदलते वक्त के साथ बदलते फैसले किस तरह दुनिया पर असरअंदाज होते हैं। वक्त और हालात के साथ बदलती हुई खबरें और इन पर गुफ्तगू के लिए फैसल याकूब सुल्तानी पेश करता है प्रोग्राम आवाज, हर जुमा शाम 4 बजे।
Your very own community radio station. LinkFM.
And we're back on LinkFM 96.7 FM. I'm your host, Mahroof Hussain, on Your Point of View on this nice, wet Saturday. And we're also broadcasting on LinkFM 96.7 FM Facebook page live. And if you want to give us a call, the studio number is 0114 261 8181, and my voluntary executive producer's back in the studio. He'll take your telephone calls or fees, so we thank him for that as well, and he's also been helped by a young apprentice, Harris, so we're very grateful to our back office team. We're also broadcasting across Inspire FM on Luton and Bedfordshire and Bradford Asian Radio across the Bradford district. Welcome to everybody there, and we've been talking a bit about New Zealand, and the number is 0114 261 8181. And we've still got Stuart Barton, the district commander, with us. Stuart, if I just ask you this last question, which I started to ask just before the break, was, we don't want to be living, Stuart, in a society or a country where security and resilience is the topmost priority. I mean, in any civilised democratic society, that should be really at the bottom, because if we live in a cohesive community, we live in a town or a city where everybody gets on, security should be something that we never consider unless something happens. Mm-hmm. And too often now, we're always talking about security and the pressure on security forces. I mean, this can't be right, can it, Stuart?
No, I mean, ultimately, nobody wants to live in a place that they feel that, in a way, oppressed, that they can't walk the streets normally, and they feel concerned, etc., etc. And I have to say, and I've said this before, but since I've come across to Sheffield in the last year or so, I think the bond here at Sheffield is something like I've never experienced before. You know, yourself, Jim, you know, other people, Mr. Ali, all the people that you know you've introduced me to, the warmth around it. I actually think Sheffield is one of those places where it is as one, and we have a good relationship. And if something was to happen, you know what, we don't want anything to happen, but we have a good infrastructure where we all work together. The vigil was a classic example of that last night. A really good feeling between everybody, some real powerful messages. You said before about a vigil, about we have too many vigils. As a matter of fact, one of the speakers got up and said exactly that. Isn't it sad that we have to get up here every time around vigils? And it was a real powerful message from a young female who got up there talking about it. And there was some other young people getting up there talking about exactly the same thing, about we don't want to live in this type of society, we want to live as one, and we do that here. That being said, on occasions when things happen, I think we would explain to you the reasons why we're taking certain steps. We're not at that. We're definitely not that in Sheffield. You see at Christmas time, though, we have to put certain measures in place around security. I think people have come to accept that. That's about safety. You'll see at football matches, events, we may have extra patrols on. That's for people's safety and reassurance. So we do take some steps, but we don't want it to be in people's faces, that's for sure. Let
me ask you this question, Stuart. You might not be able to answer it. Being a police officer,
okay,
it's a bit political.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to deal with the aftermath of what politicians say.
Yep.
But let's be honest, we live in a political climate. You know, it doesn't matter who you are, statements that are made by politicians, whether they're in government or whether they're in opposition, have ramifications in communities that we live. We've seen some of those statements and the impact it has. The shooter himself was quoting Donald Trump and his rhetoric. I mean, how does that make you feel when you probably sit there and think, oh God, it's going to make my job harder. We're now going to have more problems. We've got a lot of issues to deal with here. What goes through your head? What do you think? I mean,
what goes through my head is sometimes people have to be a little more responsive about sometimes comments. I suppose that's me not getting into the political domain with it. I have my own personal feelings on what people say. Sometimes the ramifications we have to pick up and deal with professionally. But we live in a real climate whereby one or two comments or one or two words can make a huge difference to people, especially from people who are at the top or allegedly at the top of some of our societal chains. So I think, yes, we do pick it up. We do deal with the aftermath more often than not through social media again, through comments that people shouldn't be able to put up with, through the web that we're all involved in now. So without getting too political on it, I wish sometimes people would think a little bit more, because it does make our job a heck of a lot easier if they do.
All right, Stuart, thank you for coming into Link FM today, and we appreciate your time. I know you've come from work, you've got another operation to go back to, and we want to bring you back as much as we can, and when time bearing. I mean, I know you're a busy guy, but we need access to that police officer, that senior officer, that people out there are listening and thinking, yeah, the senior police do take notice, they are concerned, and it's not just a incident-based approach, it's actually an ongoing approach which happens as and when, but actually on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, we have those conversations. So we appreciate your work.
I'll come here whenever you want me to, and it's
excellent.
Great. Thanks for the invite, it's much appreciated.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Going back to Jim, I mean, look, Jim, politics is an issue here, right? Let's be clear here. Let me point something out to you. Donald Trump tweeted after the aftermath, he never mentioned the word Muslim, he never mentioned the word terrorist. Our Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt tweeted sympathy, never mentioned anything about Muslims or standing with the Muslim community, never mentioned it was a terrorist attack. Having said that, the New Zealand Prime Minister immediately identified it as a terrorist attack. Having said that, Jim, her actions was, we're going to tighten the gun law. She never said anything about actually how we're going to deal with these issues, how we're going to deal with these fascists, what kind of policies that we're going to put in, what kind of investment am I going to give to the police around tackling far-right extremism. She was going to change the gun laws. Come on, Jim. It clearly here, and our listeners out there, and people that tell me there's double standards, hypocrisy being applied to when a Muslim's being attacked, to when a non-Muslim is being attacked. Both of them are abhorrent. We do not accept any of those things. But actually, you're not going to unite communities when a crisis happens in one community. You express sympathy, but you don't actually acknowledge the individuals that are being killed. Jeremy Hunt's claim, Jim, if you read his tweet, it was like he was talking about some kind of natural disaster, an earthquake had happened or a flood had happened. He actually wasn't talking about any people. There's people that were killed.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I just following on Stuart's points and the question you asked him, I kind of think that all politicians must take more responsibility with the consequences of their statements and their actions, and whether that's what they say or what they use social media for. And in that context, I think that...
Can I read it out? Let me just read it out. This is Jeremy Hunt. Our hearts go out to the people of Assume you don't know nothing about what happened in New Zealand. You tell me impartially. Our hearts go out to the people of New Zealand following the news of this terrible act in Christchurch. This terrible act in Christchurch, New Zealand, is one of the most peaceful, peace-loving and generous nations in the world. Your friends in the UK stand with you today in deepest sympathy. Tell me, Jim, what's he talking about?
Yeah, it's meaningless. I mean,
what does it mean? He's a foreign secretary. What does it mean?
Because he, as foreign secretary, feels obliged to say something, and Trump says something because he's Trump. But I just think that in situations like this, I think all politicians need to be very careful, not just what they say, but whether they need to say anything at all. And I think one of the problems, I was talking with Michelle earlier today about one of the issues that political parties perhaps expressing sympathy and etc., which I'm sometimes wondering about, is this about real sympathy in terms of what's happened, or is it drawing attention to the fact that this organisation is actually wanting to get almost some credit for expressing sympathy, and I think that we just need to acknowledge in lots of ways that this, everyone should be shocked by what's happened, should be clear that what has happened is a far-right extremist has killed a number of Muslims because they're Muslims, and that's a fact, and we need to then start back from there, that this is an attack on all of us, but we need to be clear that at the start of it is actually what happened. And in terms of gun law, I hadn't picked up the comment of the New Zealand Prime Minister, who I actually think has been making very liberal in lots of ways, but I think that's probably a fairly crass thing to say when that's the type of thing you say a bit further along the line, whereas the immediate thing is to recognising it for what it is.
Majid, I mean, look, coming to you, the comment. Let me, before you move on. I mean, look, there's people like Boris Johnson that have expressed sympathy. Yet Boris Johnson was a person that was making comments about Muslim women looking like letterboxes and bank robbers, and then, you know, how dare you then say, look, oh, I feel a bit sore, I'll give my sympathy. Well, you're the cause of some of these issues. Let's be clear about this.
I think there's a total lack of sincerity in the way politicians address some of these issues, and to have real trust building, you need to be true to what you're saying. Boris Johnson, as you've said, is a prime example of this. He tries to demonise whole communities, and then for a good soundbite he'll come out and express his condolences and his solidarity. And it's not just Boris Johnson. I don't know if you're aware, but 5 Pillars did a survey, and Theresa May was voted Islamophobe of the year 2015. So when you've got somebody like that who's running as who's our prime minister, what would you expect then for people who work alongside her in politics and are in her party? It sometimes it absolutely beggars belief, doesn't it?
Michelle, I put to you that this is all about winning the votes. They believe this country is going to the right. They believe that in order to get elected, you have to pander to the right. I believe that the politicians are now playing to their base. The base is now an extreme right or right wing within the political parties, but also within the country. And this is the way the country is going to be going for the next 10, 15 years. And one of the biggest triggers is Brexit. That trigger has now allowed everything to become mainstream. How should BME communities and black communities and Muslim communities and Jewish communities in this country feel if this is what those politicians... They can't bring themselves round to mention the word Muslim and terrorists, victims of terrorists in a tweet. What future, when 49 people are being killed, what future do we have in this country?
Well, people ought to be feeling, you know, as you said, very, very bad about it. I do believe that it is a tactic that the Tories in particular, you know, are using to be very political about it, and it will just get worse, you know, as we carry on with Brexit. If Brexit goes down a very, you know, basically if it happens. But I wanted to say a little something about the young people, because there is some hope in this. When I think about, you know, my own children who are grown up now, but now, you know, my grandkids and everything, it's like they don't really recognise a world where, like, people are different, where people have got, you know, or are bad for the differences, should I say. It's so integrated. It's from the youngest age, from nursery school. They're taught about all the different religions, the different people. All their friends at the schools are very, very mixed, and they don't distinguish between who their friends are. I mean, they recognise and respect that people have got different, you know, ways of worshipping, different cultures, you know, and what have you. But they don't. There seems to be less hatred amongst the young people. That's just my observation. I don't know, you know, if that's correct or not, but that's my observation. And if that observation is correct, then that gives me some hope that that young people, you know, won't buy into this extreme hatred, this right-wing stuff, and, you know, stuff that's perpetrated and, you know, backed up by people like Trump and other people, you know. And I'm not saying that there's not worrying right-wing, you know, activity, you know, going on, but we have to remember that it is very, very much in the minority. We are very much a united community, and we have to be united, because there's more, you know, that unites us than divides us, as the saying goes, and that's really, really clear in Sheffield. And if people are aware of extreme activity, that I would suggest that they do report it, you know, to the police or to, you know, anybody that they can report it to, because it is in the minority and it does need stamping out.
Jim?
Yeah, just picking up the vigil in Sheffield Town Centre wasn't the only gathering that happened yesterday. There was also in the afternoon a large gathering of young people who had come to kind of protest, as they are doing on a regular basis now, about the environment kind of being ruined. And I think there's very powerful. I didn't see yesterday's, I saw the first one, but there was again a very mixed group of people there. I mean, it all rained off now, but there was quite a whole pavement full of chalk drawings in terms of expressing some of the things that Michelle's actually said. And I think that we need to kind of, whether or not there should have been off for school, not is I won't judge, but it actually, I think, demonstrates that there is a kind of mood amongst young people who may not kind of be kind of aligning themselves with kind of traditional politics, but are angry. And I think it's important that anger is also translated into things like what happened in New Zealand.
Majid, I mean, young people's anger, this is at the moment we're getting old people's anger here because these are the people that are committing the crimes. But actually, if we don't start to tackle these issues, that anger that Jim talks about in the young people, now whether that might be far-right extremist anger, that might be the other way that people then go and target other communities as well. Last thing you want is some kind of internal conflict revolution going on. Whereas in the 50s and 60s they were fighting for human rights and freedom. Now they're going to be fighting each other if we don't do something about it on the streets of the UK. What do you think? I mean, you must have, as the mayor, been doing some programmes. Are you picking anything up?
I work alongside a lot of young children in different community groups, and a part of the work that I'm doing is I've set up a Civic Mayor's Awards which rewards young children for the work that they're doing in making Doncaster a better place. A lot of the anger that we're seeing then and frustration in kids, it often comes back to education, lack of opportunities and lack of jobs. And but when we have local government budgets which have been absolutely decimated, where programmes which ran and were in place and worked well to keep kids in school, in education, or to give those support and wraparound services, when they've been removed, then what's the expectation of what these kids are going to do? It is going to lead to anger and frustration. And those in society who are a bit more wealthy and able to do so, they're able to foot the bill from their own pockets and get the kids away from that in activities and other things. But the people, working class people who are out there on the coalface, they just don't have the money and the resources, and it's leading to a lot of this anger. And a lot of that is the lack of access to opportunities. And until that balance is readdressed, I think we go in heading down a slippery slope, Mahroof.
Jim, I mean, you used to run the Northern Refugee Centre here in Sheffield. The manifesto that this individual posted was completely anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim. You had an independent senator. I mean, by the way, this guy was Australian. I think we just need to point out he was in New Zealand. He travelled to New Zealand from Australia to carry out this crime, basically on the basis that, you know, letting the Muslims know that no matter where you live, you're not safe. His manifesto was completely anti-immigrant, and we had an Australian senator basically saying it was the fault of the Muslims that they were killed because they were there in the first place. If you hadn't been there, then you wouldn't have been killed. No remorse or recourse to, all right, he was a far right, he's got his own crazy, extreme, racist views. But, you know, is this, what I'm asking you, is this an immigration issue, is this a religious issue, or is this some kind of race issue, or is it all of the above?
I think it's all of it, and I think it's also on the back of that is I think often kind of mental health issues, in the sense I'm not saying the mental health justifies it terrorism, but the fact is a lot.
No, but that's another thing though, Jim. Every time an offence is committed against a Muslim is mental health. But when it's the other way around, I've never seen another. I mean, no, they're both crazy. Don't get me wrong.
Yes, but
they never. The mental health never comes to the forefront.
But that's a whole issue. And what the concern I've got about activities like this is that it kind of, you know, generates kind of similar activities elsewhere in the world, because, you know, because of the publicity that is generated around that individual. And I think that it's a really difficult one, because I think that, you know, on the one hand you want to publicise what's happened, you know, and the horror of it, but the other hand it's also not wanting to kind of, for someone else thinking, well, I can be global, you know, phenomenon as well by doing something similar. And I think that we need, and that's, I think, the whole danger of using images on social media in that way. I think the other particular issue is picking up the kind of, in terms of young people, and how we actually look at examples of, you know, rewarding examples of the alternative to this, in terms of where people have actually made a good difference to their community and ways of actually capitalising on that. And I think there's some examples around, like, interesting around, going back to the environmental issue, that, you know, there's some people who are getting kind of more global publicity because of leading in terms of the charge around young people.
Right, Michelle, coming to the headlines, we said we would talk about some of the headlines. I remember when Jo Cox died in a terrorist attack, should I say.
Yes.
Yet Thomas Mayer, the guy that was killed her, the Daily Mail ran the story that this was a gardener. It was a lone individual. He was a gardener, and he was afraid that the council was going to give his house away to an immigrant. So they made it a human. They made him into a human. You know, like every time you want to, you know, sympathise with somebody, you make them into a human being. When a Muslim, for example, who commits a terrorist act, immediately it's demonisation and their religion is put at the forefront. Thomas Mayer's religion was never mentioned. This guy, now let me just read the headline from the Daily Mail to you. You tell me, this is a guy that's gone in, And you've seen those images and you've seen the way he did those killings, and I'm sure the Daily Mail would have seen those videos. It says, something happened, this is the headline on their page, something happened during his travel. So they're trying to make sense of this little human man. How a blonde little boy turned into a far-right mass killer and murdered 49 worshippers. So you understand the headline here? How a blonde little boy. Are you telling me that would have been the headline if this wasn't a blonde little boy and happened to be black, Asian, black, or follow a different god? Why wasn't his religion not mentioned?
Well, there's clearly a difference, isn't there? And we say over and over again, don't we, that our media needs to take some responsibility for the headlines that they put out. You know, who knows what influence, what bad influence they have on people. It's just, you know, really, really bad. Can
I just add also, the second side, this is all psychology. What you need to understand, headline writers, in my opinion, are expert psychologists because they understand how the mind works. So then on his travels, what they said was, he's talking about his father. His father died of cancer and he left Australia to tour the world. So he toured the world, but they only mentioned 2 countries that he toured. North Korea and Pakistan. Okay? Do you wonder why they just mentioned North Korea and Pakistan? We all know that Pakistan has been accused of harbouring terrorists, and we know North Korea is a despot terrorist state. The only 2 countries they mention, you know, come on. These headlines are infuriating people to commit these crimes.
We know how they sell newspapers. This is how they sell newspapers, isn't it? This is how they do it. You know, I find it irreprehensible, and you know, I mean, I would call on people to not actually buy these newspapers. If people didn't buy them, you know, and respond to these headlines, then they wouldn't do it. And we keep saying this over and over again. I mean, one thing that I'd like to say, going back to, you know, what both Jim and Majid have been saying, that a lot of the dissatisfaction about people both young and old is due to the lack of opportunities, the lack of jobs, the lack of training. You know, while ever that exists, while we've got an economy, an austerity-based economy where people are denied opportunities, where people, if you've not got the money, then you can't, you know, put
this guy here, but Michelle, let's be honest.
Well,
this guy wasn't complaining about his jobs. He was saying there's too many foreigners coming into our country. And the other thing was, he wasn't even in his own country. He was in somebody else's country.
Well, he's an extremist. He's at the far end of it. He's a murderer. And we don't know if he's mentally ill. We really don't know. But that's at one extreme. What the problem is that other people, everybody else who is dissatisfied with their life, like they've not got a job or they've no money, whatever, you know, what are you going to think? You're going to think, oh, let me find somebody to blame. And it just seems at the moment, it's like, let's blame the immigrants, let's blame the Muslims. And, you know, for people who are, you know, unhinged, I use that term, you know, it's not a good term, but, you know, they may well think, like he does, we must harm them. And that's the extreme of it. That, you know, and obviously that's what we're dealing at the moment. Somebody at the extreme of that feeling has taken it upon himself to go out and murder in cold blood innocent people just because of the religion, you know, that they are. But rolling back from that, there's thousands of other people who will listen, and we know from reading the horrible stuff on social media that people support this.
Well, Jim,
it's shocking.
We'll come to Majid in a bit. Jim, when this guy was posting live, the thing was running live, I saw an interview of somebody who was actually a journalist who picked this up. He was some kind of consultant, and he was watching this happen live. And you know what it said, what the scary bit, that was terrible what was going on, but what he was also terrible was the comments that were coming up while he was streaming live were, yes, they were congratulating him and egging him on to do more, kill more. I mean, what kind of sick world are we living in now, Jim?
Yeah, it's awful. And I suppose that's going back to what I said about mental health. I just think that it's, you know, it's not kind of it's terrorism or it's mental health. I think it is just recognising that what happens is you create a climate by which people who will have kind of mental health issues feel that it's kind of legitimated to go out and kill people. The interesting thing also I just wanted to say about the country in terms of, because I think it is relevant, the fact, and it's a speculation on my part, but I think I'm right, it's the fact that he's from Australia, where there is fairly punitive measures in place for refugees, that he went to New Zealand with us far less punitive and has actually been a very welcoming country. So it's almost as though that you island hop to kind of mass kill people because they're more liberal.
Majid, I know you're going to leave us after the news.
Yeah, just picking up on what's been said, if you take the religion and the colour out of it, there's a commonality in all these attacks and these various bits of terrorism, in that the individuals that have a rage in them and a sense of rage which it's inexplicable, and it's almost like they've lost control of what's going on around them, their environment in one way or another, be it the immigration problem or be it whatever else, and the only way they can manifest that is by trying to gain some control back. And unfortunately in this instance, this guy's gone from Australia to New Zealand and killed almost 50 people. What's interesting as well is that I've read that he was in France and he wasn't happy with how France is with the amount of immigration which is there, with North African migrants being there, second, third, fourth generation now. But I think the irony in all this is that he fails to recognise is that Australia and New Zealand were never white. They were
completely immigrants. Every one of them is an immigrant.
Yeah. And in fact, I mean, if you look at New Zealand and Australia, there's evidence that Muslims have been travelling there from Indonesia and the islands much before white Europeans ever went. So, who are the real migrants in Australia?
Who are the real migrants? This is I mean, who is really English and who's not English? I mean, this is the same answer could be said. We haven't got time to get this debate going, Jim. We'll come back after the break about who is who. And I think we've all got some kind of foreign blood in us somewhere. But we're going to continue after the break in the news. But I mean, what sickens me, this guy's been labelled a backpacker killer. I mean, come on, let's move on to the break, and we'll see you afterwards.
Your very own community radio station,
LinkFM. रोते हुए आते हैं सब, हंसता हुआ जो जाएगा।
आज आप हंस रहे हो, क्या बात है?
तू ते हर खबर रखनी है, मिस्टर कॉम्पनसेटर ना नाते सुनिए उसे।
जी हाँ, वो टैक्सी एक्सीडेंट क्लेम वाले। अब समझिए, बड़े बड़े रेफरल और नई नई गाड़ी।
टैक्सी चाहिए? मिस्टर कॉम्पनसेटर के पास चले जाओ 0114-386-3386 or visit the Gold Taxi on Abigail Road, Sheffield.
The famous Imran's Diner from Wicker, now open on London Road, Sheffield. Serving finger-licking chicken, peri-peri grilled burgers, kids meals and pizzas. Try our new recipe menu items of lasagna, chicken strips and rice, chicken noodles, gourmet burgers and much, much more. Eat in or take out with separate seating for families. Call to place your order on 0114 258 9000 or you can order online at imransheffield.co.uk and get 20% off your order over £20. Once you've had Imran's, nothing else tastes the same.
Home Design HQ in Sheffield is the #1 place for ideas when it comes to a new kitchen, bedroom and bathroom, whether you're moving home or refurbishing your current property. Home Design HQ is the place for you with excellent customer service from start to finish. We offer a free survey and planning service. We'll also supply and install your new kitchen, bedroom or bathroom. Why not book a design visit today? We're open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. Home Design HQ. Come and visit our showroom at 106 John Street, Sheffield or call 0114 279 6100. Alternatively, log on to homedesignhq.co.uk or find us on Facebook.
Are you looking for great food? Then Shahid Catering Service is your first point of call. Shahid Catering Service offer a reliable 24-hour service at a reasonable price. With over 20 years experience, they can cater for all your needs, whether it's catering for a wedding, a birthday, a mehndi or sangeet. Shahid Catering Services also offer inclusive event services including waiter service. For more information, call Shahid Mahmood on 07796 510 422.
Hi, my name is Haris Khan. This is Mehmet Basim.
My name is Gufran.
My name is Asra.
My name is Sarah.
This is Adil Mohammed, Sheffield Youth Cabinet Member.
Keep listening to LinkFM 96.7 FM.
मैं राजा गाजी
ते मैं जुल्फकार अहमद तुसां वास्ते प्रोग्राम पेश करने आ
परदेस विच देश
हर मंगलारे शामी 6 ਤੋਂ 8 थोड़ी
पापा जी मैं बोलना इफ्तिखार ठाकुर तो तुसी सुनने हो परदेस विच देश ये करने पापा जुल्फकार ते गाजी साहब बहुत जबरदस्त प्रोग्राम ने सुनया करो सफर आसान हो जासी ने
बेटा मैं डोल गई हूँ.
Yep, I'm in Meadowhall.
तो खाना रैप चिक से खाना.
Okay, but why Rapchick?
बेटा उधर से खाना हलाल मिलता है.
The best halal place in Meadowhall. Come and dine in our family-friendly environment and try our delicious halal food. Fusion of halal, Indian and Mexican food with delicious variation. We pride ourselves on a no-fry policy, so our foods are always mouth-wateringly tasty. Rapchick at the Oasis Dining Court, Meadowhall Shopping Centre. Rapchick, taste the revolution.
Bringing communities together. Broadcasting from the Pakistan Muslim Centre, LinkFM.
If you would like to promote your business on our radio station, contact on 0114 261 8182 or email us on info@linkfm.org.
The voice of the communities. 96.7 LinkFM.
LinkFM.
From the Sky News Centre at 6, it's reported the main suspect in the New Zealand mosque shootings was a member of several far-right extremist groups, but not listed on any counter-terror watch lists. A 28-year-old Australian has been charged with murder following the deaths of 49 people yesterday. Former Deputy Chief of the UK's Defence Staff, General Sir Richard Barron, says the man's social media postings included content from British extremists.
There must have been an influence. These extreme ideas are generally not ones that you conceive of yourself. You're generally influenced by events or people. So I suspect that there has been a degree of radicalisation here.
Meanwhile, a man from Greater Manchester who posted comments online supporting the mosque massacre has been arrested. The 24-year-old from Oldham is being questioned on suspicion of sending malicious communications this afternoon. Labour has warned the government could completely wreck voters' confidence in the political system if they give the DUP money in return for support over Brexit. The Democratic Unionists insist they're not discussing money. Investigators have begun analysing the cockpit voice recorder of the Ethiopian Airlines jet which crashed last weekend. French officials have been called to examine the so-called black boxes because of their expertise. In sport, Wales have thrashed last year's champions Ireland to seal the Grand Slam in Rugby Union's Six Nations. Warren Gatland's side triumphed 25-7 in Cardiff. England lead Scotland 31-7 in their final match at Twickenham. Swansea are attempting to pull off an FA Cup shock at home to Premier League leaders Manchester City. Live now to Sam Fleet.
An extraordinary upset is on the cards. Approaching half-time, it's Swansea City 2, Manchester City 0. The goals coming from a Matt Grimes penalty and then a wonder goal by Bursant Selina. Really lovely move it was. James found Dyer and then Selina curled it first time into the top corner. The Premier League leaders have created several chances, but it's Swansea 2, Man City 0.
Watford progressed to the semis earlier with a 2-1 win over Crystal Palace, and Rangers have drawn 1-1 with Kilmarnock. That's the latest, Andy.
And welcome back to LinkFM 96.7 FM. I'm Mahroof Hussain, your host on Your Point of View, broadcasting across South Yorkshire and Sheffield on Inspire FM in Luton and Bedfordshire, and Bradford Asian Radio in the Bradford district. And we've been having a lively discussion around what we think are the cause and effect of some of the issues that are happening, and certainly what we believe may be behind what happened in New Zealand. Everybody knows what happened, but we want to get down into some further depth about why and what is going on. And in the studio with me is Councillor Jim Stanke and Councillor Michelle Cook. Councillor Majid Khan, Civic Mayor of Doncaster, has had to leave because he's got a civic engagement, so we thank him for turning up. And early on we had District Commander Stuart Barton also just giving us a reassurance around what security the police have put in, the kind of visibility around the mosques as well, and which is important. But you know, we don't want to be living in the 21st century in a country based on security. We need to be living in a country based on cohesiveness and you know, value, should I say, and that's the kind of issues we need to be talking about. There was a little clip that I was going to play. Hopefully, I don't know if we can, we'll try and play it, which was Donald Trump. Let's see if we can hear that. No, I don't think that's going to come through.
And seriously wounded 20 more in the mass shooting at 2 mosques in New Zealand. And tonight, President Trump's response was to minimize the issue of white nationalism.
We see today white nationalism as a rising threat around the world.
I don't really. I think it's a small group of people that have very, very serious problems.
A dismissive answer on a day when 49 people were gunned down by an alleged white nationalist. The president had an opportunity to denounce white nationalism there loudly, clearly, with the emotion it deserved on a day like this, something that should be easy and is important to hear from the president of the United States. After all, the suspected New Zealand shooter praised Trump in his 87-page manifesto as a, quote, symbol of renewed white identity and common purpose. But it wasn't just the president's dismissal of white nationalism that was so jarring during his 27-minute appearance to talk about his wall today. It was his embrace of the same word the suspected shooter used in his manifesto when ranting against immigrants. That word is invade. It's a word Trump used today to talk about immigrants on the U.S. southern border.
We're on track for 1 million illegal aliens to rush our borders. People hate the word invasion, but that's what it is. It's an invasion of drugs and criminals and people.
And when it comes to the 49 innocent people murdered by that white nationalist in New Zealand, they were Muslims, another group where the president has stoked the flames.
If you have people coming out of mosques with hatred and with death in their eyes and on their minds, we're going to have to do something. I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there.
It's radical Islamic terrorism, okay? There's a lot of hatred.
Well, Jim, Michelle, we've got on the line with us now Faheem Aziz from Dubai. Faheem, welcome. You are our regular contributor.
Hi, how are you doing?
Well, Faheem, you might have heard the little clip I was playing there from CNN, where Donald Trump is saying Islam hates us, demonizing Muslims and clearly making Muslims and Islam the enemy of the West. And then when they confront him about far-right extremism across the world being a problem, you think, no, it's just a few idiots. Well, when the President of the United States, and it's always qualified with the most powerful post in the world, says Islam hates us, always surprised that Muslims are being gunned down in mosques or where they're seen.
Well, it's essentially the mainstreaming of such a view. It's a legitimizing of such a view. When someone in his position can say those sort of comments, then it legitimizes other people to have those comments as well. And I think you've seen it not just over there, you've seen it all over the world, and you see it with the demonization of the Somalian congresswoman and the picture that she was portrayed with 9/11 in the background. In Australia, you had the parliamentarian who came in a burqa, in a more theatrical sort of way, sort of trying to identify what was happening there. It's really the sort of mainstreaming of this view, and I know that the authorities yesterday were sort of racing to try and take these images off social media, but really the problem is partly there. The problem is in the mainstream, and how it's so easy to have these sort of views and these Islamophobic views as a form of almost sort of lust entertainment for the readership and the viewership of these channels. Is really quite disgusting, and essentially. But
Faheem, how have we gone? Faheem, how have we gone? The scary thing is when the most powerful man in the world says Islam hates us, that clearly is a green light. If you were his advisor, it's like when you see in a mafia movie when the Don goes to his henchman and says, listen, I want this problem resolving. And he looks at him, he goes, what do you mean? He goes, you know what I mean. He doesn't say go and kill him, but clearly he's saying go and sort him out.
Well, when you look at the people behind him, you said the advisor. One of the advisors was Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon identified this constituency that would provide him with a rock bottom, solid voter base. And it's Steve Bannon that's actually going around Europe trying to sort of create this pan-European movement that's now sort of had its tentacles all over Italy, Sweden, Germany with the AFD, France and Hungary, and many more to come. I mean, we have to really sort of look at this, and we've been on the other end of this, where terrorist attacks have happened. But I know that even people like yourself, Mahroof, when after 7/7, you were at the forefront to fight extremism and part of that sort of government sort of initiatives. I mean, we need people like that to try and really address this and be at the forefront of this and call it out for what it is. And there are rules and laws around, incitement to hatred, and it just hasn't been used on the mainstream media at all. Never, in fact.
I mean, this is the other thing. I mean, politicians can say something, but somebody has to report it. And the media are reporting it. And we talked about the headlines in the Mail, how this guy has been described as a young blonde boy. Thomas Mayer, who killed an MP, for crying out loud. You killed one of your own MPs, described as a gardener, who's scared that the council might give his house away to an immigrant. I mean, where are we going? Is there a... there used to be a TV advert called, the future is bright, the future is orange. I mean, what kind of future are we going to looking at after Brexit?
Well, I was very disappointed by the Prime Minister in New Zealand. I mean, she looked shocked rather than upset. I mean, if you looked at when the British tourist went missing, she was in tears. And I was really disappointed that the only thing that she came up with, we have to amend the gun laws. I mean, that was really disappointing. I mean, you have to get to the root of this deep ideology, this evil ideology. You have to get to the bottom of that and address it. I mean, we've been talking about how the media reports things for years, and how that actually is the wrong way of reporting it. When you talk about the Muslim gangs in other, that's the wrong way of describing it. And you can see how the shooter also referred to that as well. But the shooters, and we always say a criminal is a criminal, and when they commit a criminal act, they should be treated as a criminal. What they might be 6 foot tall, they're male, they might wear particular clothing, but you don't identify that individual by those characteristics. You just identify him and you deal with it. Why was this guy not identified as a Christian? And one of the people on LBC said, well, he didn't say that he killed him in the name of Christianity. Well, neither of these people that went out there and committed these heinous crimes against young girls saying that were Muslims, but their religion is always used. Well, like I said, I think it's and I've said it many times in your program. It's because there's viewerships and listenerships and readership that want to hear this. There was a study, and I've been trying to locate it. But I think I mentioned it on the program a couple of months ago. Is the amount of anti-Muslim reporting in the Australian papers? It's one of the you're right. I think I can't remember. I think it's 10 times more, 30 times more. 30 times more, and so therefore, it's not surprising that all of a sudden, over the last number of years, there's this feeling and sort of Muslim Islamophobia that sort of set in. So it's not something that was sort of planned for and it came out of the blue. It was there. It may have been less so in New Zealand for sure, and a little unexpected, but it does manifest itself in these things, and so it's really important for the authorities to come together. I mean, I think we sort of heard all the dog whistling in the mayoral elections in London, but what was really encouraging was that the population as a whole is dead against it, and we've seen sort of the communities come together.
Faheem, this seems to be an organised approach. When you look at the United States, the far right from there, and big billionaires are putting millions of dollars into this movement. You're coming to Europe. There's a lot of this is coordinated in Europe for the first time. It's now organised. It used to be you couldn't get two of these fascists in a room without having a fight. Now they're funded by the tunes of millions and millions of dollars, and also in Australia. So there seems to be the whole globe seems to be covered by these big financiers who are funding people like Broadbite News and others. They're basically giving people. There's no shortage of money now. It's become mainstream, and it's become a business.
Well, I mean, I think 23rd of May, which I believe is the local elections, is it? The European elections, sorry?
Yeah.
I mean, this is really going to tell us how far right and extreme Europe has actually gone. And I'm fearing that the parties are, that the countries are going to sort of veer over to the right. And then we're going to have, more Muslim bans in terms of, hijabs, and many other things that are going to be coming from Europe and taking its lead from America. I mean, Steve Bannon is all over this. Breitbart is all over this, and this is sort of permeating into the sort of mainstream media. We've got sort of Fox and other mainstream news outlets that have always been doing this, but it's becoming more and more common. We talked about sort of other countries as well, and the hate that's coming out from there. It's not just on social media; it's everywhere right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up. I think what you're saying is really interesting, Faheem, but and like the dog whistle politics, and it's the fact that now that with social media, it's possible to do dog whistle politics globally. So whatever kind of bubble you're in terms of whether it's a far right or another bubble, you can literally 24/7 in terms of wherever you go. So you could, literally everything you hear during the course and see during the course of a day could be, reinforcing that prejudice that leads to terrorism, really. And I think we just so the issue of the kind of mainstream newspapers kind of echoing it, I think, is bad and should be stopped and discouraged, and issues about the legality of it need to be questioned. But at the end of the day, it's what can we do about the social media, and I think that's a really problematic area. And I think it's the responsibility. It's not just the fact that organisations are pumping money in to kind of fund the terrorist activities, but the fact is that organisations are making money in terms of like Facebook and other social media companies need to tidy up their act so they actually kind of stop the kind of global kind of dog whistle.
Faheem, what's your last thoughts on what we talked about there, this kind of globalisation, a coordinated, organised, well-funded far right? I mean, they call it alt-right. I mean, let's just call out what it is, this racist movement across the UK, across the world.
Well, I mean, I think our experience in the countries that we live in, the vast majority of the population, are all together against this. I mean, they have a very loud voice. They have, and they need to be, looked at with every sort of agency that's at our disposal. We have to look at using big data and artificial intelligence to track these guys down. They work in the dark web, some of them, and some of them, as I say, are mainstream. And they're taking their oxygen from mainstream politicians. We've got Le Pen and others that are now also becoming much more mainstream. And it's going to become increasingly harder to fight that narrative when there's votes and power with it as well. So I'm a little bit fearful because I don't see any momentum moving against them right now. And the comment that Trump said shows that. But we need to build that coalition and that understanding that we need to fight this.
Okay, fine. Thank you for. Michelle, do you want to make a
there is I mean, thank you for ringing in tonight. You've made excellent points. I mean, Trump is is the leader of the free world. It's beyond belief, isn't it? The things that they come out with. I mean, in terms of people are starting to wake up to the notion that the far right, the alt right, whatever it calls itself, is becoming more organised. And that we do need to be concerned, if not fearful, of this. But I do think there's a growing awareness of this, and so the vast majority of people are against it, and it's got to give some hope that they won't get any sort of foothold actually in the UK. But as you said, we're very, very worried about what's happening over Europe. So, thank you very much for your comments. It's something that that we do need to think about very carefully.
Fine, thanks for your call. We've got another caller on the line, and we'll get you back on the line near the elections as well. And hopefully we've got on the line with us Councillor Shafak Mohammed, my regular contributor. He's somewhere in York, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, good evening, Mahroof, and apologies to all the listeners for not being there in person.
Okay, listen, it's a bit windy. You find somewhere a bit quieter. I can hear a lot of wind there, and that's nothing to do with your politics.
Probably all the Lib Dem members. No, I'm just on my way to the hotel, so I should be going to another.
Well, look, you might have been. I'm not sure if you were able to listen to Faheem, who was speaking there from
I heard the last bit of Faheem, and I heard
from Dubai. I mean, one of the issues here is that you know, these organisations. Well, first of all, let me just give us your opinion on what you thought after you heard about the attack in New Zealand.
I'll be honest, it's pretty horrific, and unfortunately, the actual footage popped up on my timeline. Exactly, I'm not sure who it was. I can't remember now. But you know, one of my Facebook friends, I don't know why on earth they did it, but it came up, and I honestly thought it was somebody who's got a Call of Duty
video game, yeah.
Footage, until I thought, hang on a minute, this is not Call of Duty. This is pretty real. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not advocating anyone else goes and watches what this was. You know, this was cold-blooded murder. That's what it is. We should call it out for what it was. I think some people need to have a long look at themselves about the rhetoric that's being used. You know, I mean, Mahroof Hussain shared a tweet from Melanie Phillips about the, you know,
we're breaking up, Shafak. What was that about Mahroof and Melanie Phillips? I mean, them two don't go together. What did she say? Okay, I think we've lost him. Jim, just coming back to you based on some of the stuff Faheem was... I think he's back. Are you back, Shafak? No, the signal's not clear. I think we'll get the team in the office to give him a call back again. Jim, I mean, you know, listen to there seems to be, and what Faheem's saying, is a complete lack of political will to tackle this situation. We're talking we're talking billions here, Jim, and we've done a bit of checking. The backers are billionaires who are backing this. Probably got more money than some countries have for their entire budget. They could probably buy out a country if they wanted. They're organised. So having money is one thing. Being organised is the second step of it, and then having the troops on the ground to carry out some of these acts is the ultimate kind of call of duty, should I say? You know, I think these are the kind of problems that we're looking at. Is there any political will? I don't hear any. The politicians are dog whistling, like you're saying. Why would they want to fix it?
Well, I think it's ignoring it at your peril, really, and I think there is not enough. I think there is some political will, but not enough political will, and I think we need to kind of also look at historical analogies in terms of large amounts of money being used to support fascist activity is nothing new. I mean, both the kind of German Nazi Party and the Italian Fascist Party were very well funded in the early days by very large what was then corporations, and I think that it's in the interest of kind of corporations to make more money. Then there'll be various routes by which they will do it.
Shafat, let me come back to you. I mean, we were talking specifically here about the kind of this movement across the world that's so organised and well funded that it seems to me that the people who were supposed to put in the legislation to stop these kind of hatred from spreading are actually contributing to it. You're there at the Lib Dem conference in York. Are the Lib Dems going to be taking this seriously? I mean, I know you're going to be selecting a leader again very soon. Is this something you've brought up? Are they going to tackle this issue? Have they got the power to do it? Do you think they might lose the votes?
Well, we obviously don't have the power. Let's be honest. We're not in government, and you know.
If you use that logic, you won't come up with any policy. But clearly, this is something you should be striving to.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, obviously, the agenda for the conference was published several weeks ago. So this issue, you know, it wasn't possible to have a debate on this issue. But what we have had is a lot of discussion, and a lot of just people coming together and we just can't believe what's happened, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, but Shafat, you are you're the opposition leader in Sheffield. The Lib Dems are there. We don't want our leaders to be paralysed in the headlights. We want leaders to be taking a stance here. We've quoted Donald Trump's tweet, terrible. Even our British Foreign Secretary's tweet was, we didn't even know what he was tweeting about. He might have been tweeting about an earthquake that happened in Christchurch, you know. Yes, we should tweet sympathy, but let's stick to the specifics of what the actual incident was. I mean, he's doing it because he don't want to alienate his voter base.
Well, that's very unfortunate. There's a time and a place for, keeping your voter base on board. But, when it's something as horrific as this, it's put shockwaves across the world. It's not just an issue for New Zealand or Australia or maybe, where those individuals who were murdered on Friday came from. It's across the world. Everybody's horrified by it. Like I said earlier, at the moment, a lot of people here are in shock in terms of exactly how on earth could this happen, what could possess someone to do it, and more importantly, could there be repercussions? Could there be other people wanting to do something similar? And what can we do to deal with these people?
What would you? I mean, you know, obviously you were there yesterday at the vigil. You're away on political business now. What do you want to do? Should I say when you come back here? I mean, this is a cross-party issue.
Well, look,
are you going to work with your colleagues here?
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
Jim here?
Look, we've had horrific murders here. Whether it's political murder of Joe Cox, or whether it's the running over of a worshipper outside Finsbury Park. So we've had it, thankfully, not as on the scale that's happened in Christchurch, and I don't think we should wait for something similar to even be planned around here. We should take radical action. You know, we should need to take far-right extremism seriously. The police have been talking about it, and I don't think the politicians have been talking about it as much as they need to. It is a threat. You need to realise that. There's huge. In Christchurch was a very small Muslim population. The mosque was a small mosque. Heaven forbid if it was one of the bigger mosques. You know, we've got one of the biggest mosques in South Yorkshire, which is at within the city, near the city centre in Sharrow. It's a huge mosque. When my local mosque, Tinsley, is not a small place either. Several hundred, if not 1,000 people can fit there. You know, it's a worrying time. I know the police service were out in force yesterday, giving assurances of various mosques and talking to community members. Obviously, that can't continue forever. And I think what we need to do is be able to challenge these and call these people out. For too long, people have been very quick to, scaremonger and, in my opinion, demonise Muslims. And this is the consequences of that, Demonising an entire community of faith allows nutters like the one from Australia that went across to Christchurch to kill people. He didn't know any of them. He's never met them. They've never done any harm to him.
Shafat, we're coming up to a break now. We're going to try and get you back on again after the break, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Sheffield's very own community radio station.
LinkFM.
At Kuchenhaus, we deliver German quality at affordable prices. It's what we pride ourselves on. Have you been quoted by Wren, Wix, B&Q or any other kitchen outlet? At Kuchenhaus Sheffield, we're confident that we won't be beaten on quality or price. With our range of bespoke German-engineered kitchens, direct from our factory in Germany. Which is why we believe we'll beat any like-for-like quote. Visit the showroom on Attercliffe Road, click on kuchenhaus.co.uk or call 0114 256 0888.
अरे शमसुद्दीन भाई यहाँ कहाँ घूम रहे हैं?
भैया रौद्रम में कोई खाने का अच्छा जगह है?
रौद्रम में उम्दा और लजीज खानों का वाहिद मरकज चौधरीज ओरिएंट एक्सप्रेस।
अरे भैया तो टाइम जाया ना करो, जल्दी करो, भूख लग रहा है।
देर न लाओ, आज ही आओ ते फायदा उठाओ।
Cater to impress, Chaudhry's Orient Express, Princess Street, Rotherham, telephone 01709 555527।
हर कोई सज्जन मित्र बोले चौधरीज ओरिएंट दे पैगे रोले, कुकड़ पाए ते गोश्त कढ़ाई, आके खाओ पूरे होले।
Here at iLet For You, we know letting a property can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. iLet For You is a local independent letting agent. With many years' experience, we charge no upfront fees. Management is from a competitive low price of 10%. We are the only letting agents based in S4 that can legally manage selective licensed properties. We are offering guaranteed rents for 3 to 10 years to provide peace of mind and stability to your home. iLet For You, 60 Page Hall Road, Sheffield. Telephone 0114 327 2020. Terms and conditions apply.
It is the saying of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that the one who takes care of an orphan will be with him in paradise. There are 8,000 orphan children receiving education in Reed Foundation schools. They are waiting for you to take care of their needs. Sponsor an orphan today and earn the nearness of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in paradise. For just £30 per month, you can change the life of an orphan in this world and the next life for yourself. Sponsor now. 03000 121 121.
Are you looking for somewhere to hold your event? Mendi, nikah, birthday party, walima or any special occasion? Then the Pakistan Muslim Centre has just what you need. We have a range of meeting rooms, function rooms and banqueting halls that can accommodate from as few as 10 to as many as 400 people, which start from as little as £20 an hour. Catering services are available on site for additional costs. The centre has ample car parking to cater for everyone's needs. For more info, contact PMC on 0114 243 6091.
रोते हुए आते हैं सब हंसता हुआ जो जाएगा
आज आप हंस रहे हो, क्या बात है?
तूते हर खबर रखनी है। मिस्टर कॉम्पनसेटर ना नाते सुनिया उसे।
जी हाँ, वो टैक्सी एक्सीडेंट क्लेम वाले। अब समझिए, बड़े बड़े रेफरल और नई नई गाड़ी।
टैक्सी चाहिए? मिस्टर कॉम्पनसेटर के पास चले जाओ 0114-386-3386 और विजिट द गोल्ड टैक्सी ऑन एबिडेल रोड, शेफील्ड।
मैं हूं मोहम्मद शकलैन और मैं हूं मोहम्मद शफाकत। हम पेश करते हैं हालात हाजरा का प्रोग्राम हकाइक।
बात हो सियासत की,
मजहब की, माइशियत की
या कम्युनिटी के बाकी मसाइल की,
पेश करेंगे असल हकाइक
हर जुमरात शाम 6 बजे।
Our voice, our choice, our radio station, Sheffield.
And you're on Your Point of View. Mahroof Hussain, your host, broadcasting across LinkFM 96.7 FM, Sheffield, South Yorkshire, on Inspire FM, Luton and Bedfordshire, on Bradford Asian Radio across the Bradford district. And we are having a good debate. If you want to ring in, the number is 0114 261 8181. And the guy that usually gives the number is actually in York and is still on the line with us, Councillor Shafat Mohammed. Thanks for staying on after the break. You were talking about Melanie Phillips and Saida Warsi, and this is a new concept out there. Apparently there's some kind of hierarchy of hate. You can't be Islamophobe. Islamophobia cannot equate to anti-Semitism. Is that right?
Well, let's be honest. One hates those members who are from, the Jewish community. The other one hates the members from the Islamic community. Well, actually, they hate each other just as much, I think. And I don't think there should be this hierarchy. People who hate should be just called out for, and it's unfortunate. I just think she was wrong. I think if there's an opportunity at a question time debate or something, and anyone that can get to it, there's one in Sheffield soon. I'm not sure if she's guessing or not, but I think at some point, whenever it is, I think she needs to be called out for it. She usually has a lot to say for herself. I think
she is on record on being on TV saying 1.5 billion Muslims hate us. This is Melanie Phillips, and she's the main key reporter for the Daily Mail.
I disagree with what's been shared by, I've seen what Saida Warsi has shared, and I totally disagree in light of what's happened in Christchurch, that somehow Islamophobia isn't a big issue. I think it's a very, very big issue for those communities that are subjected to this.
No, but this is an issue because, look, let's be clear, from our point of view and from any sane point of view, any form of racism is unacceptable.
Exactly.
Anti-Semitism, we're not even going to try and quantify whether it's a bit or a less or it's a scale. It's wrong. It's wrong. Now, for Melanie Phillips, who's she's from a Jewish background, okay, you speak up for Jews like Muslims do speak up for Muslims, but you don't and if a Muslim sat there and demonized Jews because by saying, you don't have a problem, the problem's Islamophobia, equally, how are we going to solve these problems? Because these people want to kill everybody.
Exactly.
There's no hierarchy here.
I suspect the killer.
Sounds like back in World War II when one of the quotes was, when they came for the Jews, I did nothing. When they came from the trade unionists, I did nothing. When they came for the gypsies, I did nothing. When they came for me, there was nobody left.
I suspect the killer probably hated people of other faiths just as much as he hates the Muslims. So I don't think there's this hierarchy exists. It's unfortunate. I think she's got it wrong. I hope she does go away and reflect on it, and maybe she comes back and she is strong enough and bold enough to say, you know what, I tweeted this a year ago, whenever it was, and actually in light of what's happened, I think I was wrong, and I want to apologise.
I'll be surprised if she does. It's not a raison d'etre.
Exactly. But I think we need to move on. Look, what we do need to do is we do need to kind of, now more than ever, say, look, this sort of hatred exists. People that peddle it do it. Tommy Robinson of this world, the EDL, this is the end result of what you do. It's not just about having a pop-up.
Yeah, but Shafa, let me ask you a question, okay? Sometimes it's a bit difficult to have these kind of debates in an impartial way. We talk about hierarchy of hate, is anti-Semitism worse than Islamophobia? Is Islamophobia worse than homophobia? Is homophobia worse than... this issue here. But when you get people like Tommy Robinson standing on an Israeli tank and then spouting his crap, or Katie Hopkins wearing an Israeli Defence Force T-shirt, what are they trying to say?
Well, they're trying to prove a point that they're not anti-Semitic. Well, let's be honest, as you said earlier. Once I don't think them guys like anyone. Doesn't look like them, doesn't sound like them, and unfortunately, people are misguided. If Tommy Robinson somehow doesn't hate people, not just Muslims, but he hates other people. People from the Jewish community come from all backgrounds. They're not just white Europeans. And I think you need to realise that. This guy hates everyone, and the quicker you call him out, the better. But look, there was a warning signal to us all when Joe Cox was murdered. There was a warning signal to us when the kind of minibus attack occurred outside Finsbury Park Mosque, and this is a massive wake-up call that's happened in Christchurch. We need to look at security arrangements within our places of worship, and I said all places of worship, not just mosques. We need to look at how we can, unify under whatever banner it can be. I'm not really bothered. I don't think this is a party political issue. Of calling out these hate preachers. The consequences of banning Muslims. There you go, Mr. Trump. This is I would say this is the net result of all the hate that's been spewed out by not just Donald Trump but all the other people, that has led these people thinking it's acceptable to go and gun people down, total innocent, praying, 49 people in a country that, let's be honest, New Zealand was always seen as a peaceful country, and I still think it is. Its peace has been shattered by one madman. There may well have been others that supported him, and I think the police now need to take serious action. And obviously the contents on online need to be dealt with. Whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. I don't have the technical knowledge, but somebody ought to be out there. They make a hell of a lot of money from this. They need to be able to take these accounts down. And if people are persistently putting this right-wing nonsense up, they need to be just suspend their accounts full stop. Tommy Robinson, I understand, has had his account suspended, but anyone else that's been shared in propagating this stuff, they should not have the opportunity. World Wide Web is celebrating 30 years of existence, is it? I think it needs to be used for the positive, not the negative.
Well, Tim Berners-Lee is saying that when the World Wide Web was set up, his initial thoughts for the first half of those 15 years, it was a force for good. He's thinking the last 15 years it's been used as a force for bad. And unless we recalibrate, like the markets tend to do, that it's gonna be a force for hate going forward. And if they do recalibrate and fix some of the issues that we're learning, it might better.
Need some regulation. We will need more control. It needs people to take a lot more responsibility with what appears on their platforms. They can't just say, "Oh, it's about freedom of expression." I'm sorry. Freedom of expression then veers onto hatred and ultimately leads to people thinking it acceptable to go and gun people down. I mean, the other issue is gun laws. New Zealand's taking this action, a bit like we as a country did after Dunblane. I don't like America's going to be moving fast on their gun laws. They've had countless attacks in schools, etc. Gun laws need to be looked at. You should not be able to buy automatic assault rifles. If you like shooting, you should be able to do it at a shooting range. You can have a shotgun, you can have a little pistol, but you know what? You don't need to be carrying it around with you. I'm sorry, it's not the Wild West. Whether it's New Zealand
well, look, I think as long as America are around, they're always going to have these guns for some reason.
Exactly. Well,
it doesn't matter how many millions die. I mean, look, I think
wants to bring in tougher gun laws. Let's see what
more Americans have been killed by 5-year-old with guns than were killed by terrorist attack by Muslims in the United States. Did you know that?
There you go. They're the stats that the
accidental deaths.
Don't want to listen to.
All right, Tavai, thanks very much for you. Take care. I hope you enjoy yourself in York.
Windy York.
Enjoy yourself.
Hotel automatic doors that keep in and out. Okay,
thanks very much. Bye bye.
See you next week.
Bye. We've had Shafak there just talking a bit about social media and the kind of topics we've had. We're gonna hopefully. I think we've got a call coming in. I'm not quite sure who might be on the line, but do we have a caller on the line?
Yeah. Good evening, Mahroof. This is Shafak.
Shafak, hi. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. I've been listening to your program and just Shafak's comments and that in past patches. But how just to really, it's quite honestly, it's quite shocking and quite emotional. It's just horrendous, and how he methodically carried out the attack. And what worries, not worries me, but what's concerning is, and quite perturbing, Mahroof, that it lasted over 36 minutes, and yet the police never sort of arrived on the scene up until the massacre was sort of carried out. And with the Australian, and I'm sure you're aware that once I was reading, and you may have heard about it, the Australian, and one of the senator, I think, was saying that the Muslim, a Muslim.
This guy. Bearing in mind, this guy is an independent.
Yeah, a Muslim is a disease, and we need to vaccinate them, and it just showed the mentality and the bigotry.
I've not come across that comment. I have to admit.
Yeah, and it shows the mentality and the bigotry of those people. But one thing, I know your program is coming up to near conclusion, but I think we need to be aware of that. We mustn't become afraid, and I think I would say that we need to carry on our daily routine, daily life as normal, or the prayers and the mosque keep attending as normal, and not let those bigots, those idiots to defeat us. And I think what was interesting yesterday, and on behalf of Sheffield Islamic Centre, Medina Masjid, I convey our condolences and sympathies. But yesterday we had this lovely white couple came into our mosque and they were so emotional, and just saying that we stand shoulder to shoulder with the Muslim community, we're in solidarity, and if there is anything that we can do, please do. And that was wonderful, Mahroof. Honestly, it was. Again, those terrorism will not it will not defeat us. In actual fact, it makes us more determined and more resilient, if anything. But again, I'm sure you've already covered the language that tabloid and the newspaper and the press are being using.
we've covered that. We've given examples of how the hypocrisy, how they work.
Well, and and that's how terrorism proliferates, because of the disparity and the imbalance and the way the Muslims are demonized. But nevertheless, thank you, because I've been listening to Praise and Grumble, so I've missed most of your program. I keep forgetting it's the early times.
Yeah.
So, but again,
thank you for calling in. We appreciate your contribution as always, and hopefully you'll keep on doing so.
No, thank you for always raising and discussing and debating some of the core issues that we, not as a Muslim community, but I think all community that face. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. So that was Ashfaq Kiani. Good note to finish off there. Terrorism won't defeat us. We've got to stay strong. We don't want people to divide us, and there'll always be some crazy person out there that wants to commit a crime. There'll always be some crazy person out there that wants revenge. But the issue here is, one killing and another killing doesn't actually solve any of these issues. We need to talk about these kind of problems. I want to move on to the kind of last 15 minutes to another topic, which I think is quite important, which is fostering for communities up and down the country. Fostering is a big issue for local authorities because they've got a lot of children in care. They haven't got many foster parents, and this is something I'm sure councils in Bradford, Luton and Sheffield and districts and surrounding areas are having problems with. On the back of that, two people here in the studio. We got with us Shakura Dalit and Abrar Javed, who's organising an event for Muslim foster parents. And the reason being is there's a number of Muslim children in foster care. And the reason why this is relevant, and you'll explain to us now, is when a child is born, from whatever background it is, local authorities try and place that child in a similar kind of cultural background as well at the same time. So let's start off with you and Shaku. Tell us about this event you've organised and why is fostering a big issue, and with the children that once they go into the care system, how can we make sure they have a quality of life that you and I had when we were younger?
I think as a community we need to realise the sheer scale of the number of children that are being taken into care. In Rotherham alone we have about 48 Muslim children in the care system, with about 3 or 4 Muslim foster families. And when this was brought to our attention, we thought it very important to let the community know, because the community usually doesn't know the children that are taken into care, because it's all done in sort of a confidential manner to safeguard the child. And what we are doing is we're holding an event with Mercy Mission from Bradford on Wednesday the 20th of March in Rotherham at the Unity Centre, where we're encouraging families that can foster to come forward and show their interest, so we can tackle this problem and take this responsibility on.
So when is this event you've got organised?
Sorry, when is the event?
You've got an event, yeah?
Yes, it's on Wednesday the 20th of March at 7 o'clock at the Unity Centre in Rotherham.
So Abrar, I mean, fostering is extremely important, because the kind of family structure or family base it gives to the child is very important. And why are we finding that there are not many people or many foster parents coming forward in the first place? Or is this a general shortage across the board for all foster parents, or just specific for Muslim kids or kids from a cultural background?
No, I think there is a general shortage. Having spoke to people who are experts in that particular field, it's not just particularly from Muslim background. I think you will also find in black communities where there's a shortage of black foster parents coming forward, and this brings a host of issues in terms of identity, spiritual, religious connection. First and foremost, I think with fostering, it's important that children get the best quality of life in the respect they get: food, warmth, love. But beyond that as well, there is something about roots, identity, culture, and that has a long-term impact on that particular individual. So having spoke to people who are actually involved in this field, including the local council, etc., they do see that there is a very important issue going forward in the long term, meaning that in terms of the cultural aspect or the cultural growth of an individual, is important that we get people from that particular community coming forward and actually plugging that gap, so to speak. So there could be a number of reasons why foster carers or potential foster carers don't come forward. It may be about expectations. It may be the fact that one thing I think people need to realise is that foster care is not a romanticised idea. It takes a special kind of person to be able to take that responsibility up. As you have to remember, these children have come from. So
just tell me, what is the age range of the children? If you want to be a foster parent, just tell us first of all 2 things. One thing is, what is the age range of the children, and what needs does a parent? What are you expected a foster parent to have? I mean, do they need to be a certain age? Do they need to be a couple? Do they need to have a house? What criteria do they need to pass to become a foster parent?
Well, I think Shaku's got a bit more better idea than I have.
I think what you need to do is basically have a spare bedroom, and then you need to put yourself forward, and you will be given all the training. In terms of age ranges, it ranges from 0 to 16. Some have more complex needs, some have different. There's different reasons why children are taken into care, and they are identified and they're given to the most appropriate parent for that child according to his needs.
And is there any pay? I mean, what is there some financial support? Because clearly you're going to be looking after a child which needs additional support, and I know the local authorities provide that kind of help. What kind of package, or should I say?
In Rotherham, the sort of figure varies from £350 per week upwards, depending on the age of the child and the complexity of the child involved. And that's the kind of and it goes up according to whatever the criterion is for that particular child.
I mean, it's good that we got with us here Jim as well, and Michelle from Sheffield Council. I mean, clearly it's I think every council is a corporate parent, as they say. So what kind of pressures do local authorities have when it comes to placing children into foster care? Because while they're in the state care, it's an expensive. They're extremely expensive. And I think also not just from a financial pounds and dollars and pennies sign. Actually, you're denying, as Abrar said, the child that kind of cultural background and a future.
Yeah, you're right, Mahroof. As an elected councillor, we're in Sheffield, but as an elected councillor, we are what's called a corporate parent. So we have got the legal responsibility for all the children that come under the care of the local authority. So it's something that we keep an eye on. And there is a general shortage of people coming forward to be foster parents across the board. And I mean, I know we do all we can. We have various advertising campaigns, and like I said, this event in Rotherham will be an excellent way of getting some people to come and explore more about what it's about. Because I think part of it is, as you said, that people don't really know what it actually entails. And it depends. It varies. It varies from one child to another. So it is something that you really do need to come and talk to the people involved at events like this, and find out and just see if you can do it. So yeah, it's really good that you're doing this.
Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I think I suppose long felt that foster parents generally are kind of unsung heroes of our community, really. I mean, clearly the support you get and clearly payment, but most foster carers do it out of a sense of love and I suppose duty, in a word, that they take their responsibility very seriously, and realising that however good we may be as corporate parents, the local authority, at the end of the day, actually kind of getting kids into foster care and possibly leading on to adoption is the route to do, because it's still frightening as a corporate parent, the numbers of kids who have been in kind of care who still end up kind of in terms of homeless or kind of in prison, etc. Frightening statistics, and we need to kind of look at how we provide as rich a childhood as possible in what may be tragic circumstances where kids have ended up in care in the first place. And I just think what you've described in Rotherham, providing that particularly for Muslim kind of foster parents and for Muslim kids, is just brilliant. Really well done.
Shakur, I mean, Jim's talking about something there that you've done positively. You've done this as a community. Did you take this to the council, or did the council come to you about this?
The council approached us and they said, we've got this issue with regard to the Muslim community not coming forward. And obviously, if you know the history of Rotherham, there's a lot of mistrust between the local authority and the local community, and it still continues to this day. So what we thought is, we will bring the community together. We'll highlight the issue and the need for foster carers and foster families, and how rewarding it is. It is a challenge. It's a challenge that our community, I'm sure, will take on. And we felt it important that we take the bull by the horn and sort of highlight the issue and highlight the increasing need. Because if you have, we're a very small population relatively in Rotherham of BME. If we've got 48 children in care, that is a very high number that's in care and not in culturally appropriate households. Although the parents, I'm sure, are very loving and everything else, but the cultural, religious nourishment that them children require can only be provided with someone who is culturally appropriate for them.
But I mean, what kind of things bring children into care in the first place? I mean, this is presumably what happens to any child happens across the board. Doesn't matter what family structure or cultural background they come from. What kind of problems do children face in the first place in order for them to come into care?
Yeah, I mean, it's a broad spectrum of circumstances why they come in, but regardless whether they're broad spectrum, they are these are very vulnerable children. And this could be emotional, sexual, physical harm that's been caused. And obviously their safeguard has been put at risk to the extent where social services feel that they can no longer stay with their parents. It could be down to bad parenting skills. So there could be a whole host of reasons. You have to also remember that once these kids are within the care system as well, it's not also plain sailing either. They go potentially from one foster parent to another foster parent, and then that just compounds the isolation, the mistrust, and it can be very challenging for that particular child to build up that trust with foster parents as they move from one house to another before they probably find somewhere where actually they can have some long-term stability. So there's a host of reasons why they actually come into care. There's the issues around parents' drug abuse. We're talking about child abuse that we can't comprehend as families so to speak. I mean, when I was growing up, I still think a clip around the ear was probably a bit too much for me, except. But we're talking about some serious ongoing abuse for establishments to identify for them to come into services in the first place. But that doesn't just stop there. Their negative experiences can go through the system and how they fall through the system as well. So that compounds it. So you will find children in very challenging circumstances in that regards.
I mean, this is obviously a positive thing going forward. So what is the key message you're going to try and get across to the community on Wednesday?
The key message is that these children need homes, and we have the capacity to provide the loving homes. And I think it's very, very important that parents come forward knowing that we will support them in every way to ensure that they are suitable for fostering and ready to face all the challenges. They shouldn't be fearful of what may come. They will be fully sort of trained and fully supported in this regard.
Just tell us a bit about this training, this support, because a lot of them, there might be some good families out there that are able to do it, but they're thinking, I don't know, I'm not sure. What training actually, I mean, you might not know, we probably need somebody from the council to talk about that, but from your understanding, what kind of training will they put in place? It's
a series of assessments to ensure that the family is suitable to look after children, and it's quite a lengthy process where the social services will work closely with that family to ensure that they're ready, they're aware of the sort of procedures to take place that need to be taken place, what kind of details are needed to be recorded, what kind of protocols to follow in case there's an emergency, because with vulnerable children there's a slight difference between your own children and vulnerable children, and they will be made aware of that particular child and what the local authority expects in regards if there are difficulties with regard to that child.
Jim, just we're coming up to the end of the show. We've got about a minute left. I mean, is this something that the Sheffield Council could be picking up on?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd certainly want your details, really, because I think that it's across all authorities, really. And I think that it's, as I said, we just need to make sure that with our kind of corporate parent responsibilities, we kind of are sensitive to kind of people's kind of faith and cultural background as much as possible. And if this is my last word tonight, I just think this is a really inspiring way to end what has been quite a difficult programme. And I think what you're doing is just great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. So just a quick reminder then, it's Wednesday 6 p.m. 7 p.m. Wednesday
at the
Unity Centre in Rotherham. And we ask everyone, if you're listening, do pop in and engage in this well-worthy initiative. We want to thank all our callers. It's been a very difficult show today because we've been talking about some very sensitive issues. And don't forget, tomorrow at the Pakistan Muslim Centre, they're celebrating International Women's Day, 17th of March, starting at 12 p.m. till 3 p.m. Come along. It's in partnership with Sheffield University, Mums United, Telmama and AMRC, which is the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre here in Binswell. So see you next week.
The voice of the communities, 96.7 Link FM.